Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So it's April 4th, 2022, Hillsborough, North Carolina. We're reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 33, which is the Rasa Dance, text 25. And as I said, this verse doesn't conclude the chapter, but it concludes the Rasa Dance. So after this, Maharaj Pariksit is going to be asking philosophical questions about the Rasa Dance, and then the gopis go home. We have a couple verses where Krishna tells the gopis to go home, but this is the last verse in the Rasa Dance itself. Evam shashankam suvirajita nisha sa satchikamo nurata balagana shishesva atmanya varuda sorata. You're going to add the Y to the A. So this is this Sunday. So it would be Atmani and Avarudha. And when you can't have two vowels together in Sanskrit, so when you have Atmani and Avarudha, it becomes Atmanyavaruda. Sarva Sarat Kavya Katara Sashraya. Please check. Before we look at the word for word, anybody have any idea some of the meanings of some of these words here before we go down to the word for word? Just looking at the verse. Any words you can pick out? Kama, which means lust or desire. Yeah, some other. Atmani, which means the oneself. Yes. Sarva, all. Yes, which pulls into it. Mother Krishna Priya said at the beginning, it's all. Kata, excellent, which is speaking, discussions, very good. Kavya, poem, yes, poetic. Rasa is taste. Ashraya, shelter, yes, shelter of all taste. Evam thus, yes. Satya, pure, truth, yes. Anything else? Salva, yes. Nishaha, night, yes, very good. Okay, let's go to the word for word. I'm going to be structuring this class a little differently than I normally do. So usually I pick an overriding theme, and I'm not really doing that. This time I'm just going to go through 6 points of this verse. So word for word. Evam, in this manner. Shashanka, of the moon. That literally means the full rabbit. The whole rabbit. In other words, you could see the whole rabbit in the moon. Yeah. Amshu, by the rays. Virajitaha, made brilliant. Nishaha, the nights. Saha, he. Satyakamaha, whose desires are always fulfilled. Anurata, constantly attached to him. Now this is a very interesting word, which Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur and Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami all said this means anuraga. And we're going to get to this in a bit. Note this word constantly, because when we talk about anuraga, we're going to talk about that. Okay. Abala Ganaha, his many girlfriends. So what does Ganaha mean? People, a group. Now, Bala means strong. What is Abala? Weak. The group of weak people. Yeah, exactly. Like, and I don't think it's politically correct anymore, but we used to call women the weaker sex, yes? So there it is in the Bhagavatam, sorry. Shisheshve, he utilized. Actually, this literally means to serve. Atmani, within himself. Avarudha, reserved. And we're going to be talking a lot about that word. Sorataha, conjugal feelings. Sarvaha, all the nights. So here you have it. It's going on all the time. It's not just one night. Lots and lots. Sharat, of the autumn. Kavya, poetic. Kata, of narrations. Rasa, of the transcendental moods. Ashtrayaha, the repositories. BBT translation. Although the gopis were firmly attached to Lord Krishna, what was that word for firmly attached? Anuraga. Whose desires are always fulfilled, that was Satya Kamaha. The Lord was not internally affected by any mundane sex desire. Now, this is interesting in this translation, and this particular part of this translation is coming from Sridhar Swami and Srila Prabhupada. However, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, Sanatana Goswami, and Jiva Goswami all translate this opposite. It's 180 degrees opposite. And at the end of Jiva Goswami's Tika, he talks about how Sridhar Swami translates it like this. So we will get to discussing that. The Lord was not internally affected by any mundane sex desires. Still, to perform his pastimes, the Lord took advantage. Now, took advantage is this serving. How he was serving is the word, is how this word is being translated here. Of all those moonlit autumn nights, so many, many, not just one, which inspire poetic descriptions of transcendental affairs. So the way this is translated makes the autumn nights the shelter of rasa, which is quite interesting because generally in rasa understanding, where is the ashraya? Who's the ashraya in rasa? Now, Krishna is the vishaya, unless you're talking about Krishna loving Radha, in which case Radha is the vishaya and Krishna is the ashraya. But generally the ashraya is the devotees. And the moonlight would generally be an udipana, not an ashraya. So that's interesting. BBT purport. This purport is just about the word rasa and kavya. It is difficult to translate into English the word rasa, which indicates the spiritual bliss derived from one's loving relationship with Lord Krishna. That bliss is experienced in the midst of spiritual pastimes with the Lord and his devotees. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti explains that great Vaishnava poets like Vyas, Padasara, Jayadev, Lilasuka, Bilvamangala Thakur, Govardhanacharya, and Srila Rupa Goswami have tried in their poetry to describe the conjugal affairs of the Lord. These descriptions are never complete, however, since the Lord's pastimes are unlimited. Thus, the attempt to glorify such pastimes is still going on and will go on forever. So this is hitting into the Kavya Kata. Lord Krishna arranged an extraordinary season of beautiful autumn nights to enhance his loving affairs, and those autumn nights have inspired transcendental poets since time immemorial. So this is going on to the Kavya Kata and the Rash Ashraya, that the autumn nights are becoming the shelter for the rasa of the poetry. Evam shashankamsu virajita nishaha satyakamo nurat balagana shisheshva atman yavaruda shorata sarva sharat kavya katara shashvayaha. Although the gopis were firmly attached to Lord Krishna, whose desires are ever fulfilled, the Lord was not internally affected by any mundane sex desire. Still, to perform his pastimes, the Lord took advantage of all those moonlit autumn nights which inspire poetic descriptions of transcendental affairs. So rather than reading through in their entirety any of the tikas of the acharyas, all of which on this verse are extremely long, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the different topics of the verse, and then for each one I'm going to refer to sections of the acharya's commentary. And as I don't have a printer, I have to do this on my phone by highlight. I've highlighted the commentaries, and so it will take me a few seconds to find each of them when I get to that point. So if you can bear with those brief interruptions. So first we have the brilliant moonlit nights. So this is happening in brilliant moonlit nights. Now, of course, even in this world, brilliant moonlit nights is usually very romantically inspiring. And as we said, usually would be considered, an udipana would be a stimulus. And, what I didn't do, I planned to do and I forgot. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has a really nice song in his Sharanagati with among the 6 items of surrender. One of them is to accept what's favorable. Yes? Does anyone know the 6 items of surrender? It's favorable. Reject what's unfavorable. Krishna the protector. Krishna the maintainer. Same interest and humility. They can be translated in different ways. These 6 items of surrender are accepted by all of the Vaishnava Sampradayas. So in his poems on accepting what's favorable, he describes things like having beautiful flowers and having moonlit nights and making a big throne for Tulsi Devi. So it's one of the favorable aspects. Okay, so this is from Sanatana Goswami. Shashanka, marked with the figure of a rabbit in the verse, means the full moon. In other words, the Sanskrit just says, marked with the figure of a rabbit. And one understands this is an idiom. You all know what an idiom is? Like if we say, okay, let's hit the road. That doesn't mean we all go out with sticks and start hitting the road, right? It means we're going to go somewhere. Or when we were going to go on a trip, my father would say, okay, let's boogie. Right, which means to dance. But we weren't going to go dance. We were going to get in our car. So in Sanskrit, when it says, with the full figure of a rabbit, just like Gopi Puranananda Prabhu always described that the heart was often described as a cave. So in Sanskrit, when it'll say deep within the cave, it often means within the heart. Shashankana, mark with the figure of a rabbit in the verse, means the full moon, since the mark resembling the rabbit was completely recognizable. The rays shone brightly, virajita, as if it were day. For the rasa dance, on all those nights, the moon appeared full as if it was the full moon. So, this beautiful aspect of the moon. Of course, Krishna appears in the dynasty of the moon, and although he appears when the moon is not full, still, he appears on the 8th day of the moon. That's why we call it Janmastami. Asta is 8. The moon appeared full, and of course, Krishna is often compared to the full moon himself. So everything was very bright at night. It wasn't that they were just dancing in darkness, right? Of course, people in general, they like to dance at night, isn't it? Right? We were talking once about spreading Krishna consciousness and how we would convert the nightclubs into kirtan halls so people could go at night after work, right? So they like to go at night, but then they still have lights, right? But it's a kind of a subtle light. It's a soft light. Although it's very bright, it's not as bright as the light of the sun. Okay, the next point here is that he's self-satisfied and he can fulfill all of his own desires. Now, the upcoming verses are going to get into this philosophically in quite a bit of depth. So I'm not going to be plumbing that today. But the concept is that this is not an exploitive relationship. In this world, we have various desires, and we approach other people in order to fulfill our desires. And we all know that the sexual desires in this world have the most capacity for being exploitive, isn't it? Sex and money. I remember when I was getting my graduate degree at UNC, and we were talking about corruption in educational leadership, and they said, what's the main areas that people get corrupted in is sex and money. So although in this world we talk about romantic love, sexual love as being the height of love and the height of giving, and it's all pretty and flowers, and at the same time we know that it is also the area where there's most likely to be exploitation, anger, even violence. Isn't it? And why is that? It's because a person has a need that they're depending on another living entity to fulfill. Your Krishna Maharaj teaches this empathic communication, and the basis of it is that we have needs. From those needs, needs means something you have to fulfill. If you don't fulfill it, there's going to be some negative consequence. That's what we need by a need rather than a want. Right? Everybody understand? Right? I might want a new coat, but I might not need it. Who is that lady who had 1,500 pairs of shoes? So that's not a need. Yeah? So when you have a need that must be fulfilled, then one gets a little desperate if it can't be fulfilled. Does this make sense to everybody? This is why when we're very hungry, thirsty, or tired, we become self-centered. We stop having the capacity to care about other people as much. Even Maharaj Pariksit, when he was hungry, thirsty, and tired, he kind of lost it a bit. Yes? So when our needs are very strong, if we're really hungry, we're really thirsty, we're really tired, we're really sick, we get so focused on meeting that need that we're not so nice to other people anymore. We become grouchy. And we end up wanting to use other people to meet our needs. Hey, can you just get me that? I'm really hungry. And sexual desire is also like that. Prabhupada talks about it as a need. And it's very intense. It's a very intense kind of hunger. And therefore a person exploits another person. In civilized society, it's a mutual agreed upon, consensual exploitation. But it's still like that. I'm using you to meet my hunger. However, if you are self-satisfied, if you don't have any needs, imagine that, if you had no needs. You had no needs. And not like a piece of rock, not like, a table or something that has no needs. But because you're completely satisfied. So often people think, if I have no needs, it means I've repressed everything. And I've become like a dead person, and people really mess themselves up in spiritual life by doing that. But no, my needs are all fulfilled. And with Krishna, his needs are fulfilled by himself. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnadudachate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. You can take everything away from you can take the infinite away from the infinite, and still the infinite remains. So there's no needs. And in fact, the devotees also have no needs, because they also feel always fulfilled, because they feel connected with Krishna all the time. If I'm connected to the infinite constantly, I have no need. Think of it like when your phone or your computer is plugged in versus when it's on battery. You understand? When we become disconnected, Bahirmukhi, we turn from Krishna, it's like we're running on batteries. And we have a very small battery, like your battery. How long is it going to last? A day, maybe a day and a half if you have a really good phone. And that's it. Then you're going to be running around. Where is it? Where is it? Plug. Where is it? Do you all follow? Yes? But if you're plugged in, if you are the powerhouse, you don't have to go looking for a plug. So Krishna's the powerhouse, and therefore he's not associating with the gopis to fulfill some need like that, nor are they associating with him to fulfill some need like that. Now, if your needs are always fulfilled internally, unlimitedly, then what you're doing is an expression of love. Does this make sense to everybody? So sexual love, romantic love in this world looks like it's an expression of love, but it isn't. I'm sorry. I know it's not something anybody wants to hear, but it's not. It's an expression of hunger. But spiritually, one is not hungry, so it's an expression of love. I think of it like David said, my cup runneth over. And I think of it like a spring. You know, at the bottom of Radhakund, there's a spring. And it's like you have this spring in your heart that's just flowing. So with Krishna and the gopis, it's just this flow. It's just flow of love that I'm giving just because I care about you. I want to bring you happiness. I don't need you to give me happiness. I am simply wanting to give you happiness. So the devotees are always just trying to give Krishna happiness, and Krishna is always trying to give the devotees happiness. Okay. This is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He says, because Krishna's conjugal sports kama with the gopis were not material, Krishna is called Satyakama, one whose desires are always fulfilled. Satya means the form of the absolute truth, and kama means pastimes of love. In other words, Krishna engaged in pastimes of love, which are the absolute truth and the source of all pure, selfless love. So that's what we're looking for in this world, isn't it? And we're so disappointed when we don't find it. It's such a shock to us. You know, it's like people are like, I can't believe, it's unbelievable. You know, because it's one of the evidences that we're a soul, that we're looking for this type of relationship where I'm loving you out of my fullness, not out of my lack. I'm loving you voluntarily, not that I'm driven by something in myself. All right, the next point is that he's serving the group of the weaker sex who were filled with anuraga towards him. So we have this word about serving. And I hear from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur again. The word shisheve comes from the root save, to serve. This implies that all the nights which were suitable for the Rasa Lila were thereby enjoyed or served in the most respectful way. This is similar to the expression, quote, the devotees enjoyed or honored Mahaprasadam, unquote. So I remember hearing a class by Radhana Swami where he was talking about this. How when we're taking prasadam, we're serving the prasadam. You know, now we may not always take prasadam, we might like that. We might take prasadam as if we were an animal just trying to satisfy our hunger and our taste. But the concept is that the prasadam is the taste of Krishna and we are serving it by eating it. Yes? So you could say that the moonlit nights as an udipana were serving Krishna and the gopis. And you could also say that Krishna was serving the moonlit nights, because not only was Krishna reciprocating with the gopis, he's also reciprocating with the nights. In spiritual life, these are all persons. The moon is a person, the nights are a person, all the emotions are personified. And so if something is a nudipana, it's a stimulus for love, Krishna serves it by then having an atmosphere of love in that. If you can think about, a mundane example. So let's say we decorate your house for a party. You're going to have a birthday party, so we put up streamers and balloons. And then if you have your party there, you're serving the atmosphere that was created. Does that make sense to everybody? Right? If you don't, you say, nah, we'll just have the party outside. Then the person who made all that decorations would feel sad. Now imagine if all the decorations were alive. So the decoration, the living decorations are coming and fixing up everything. And then you go, nah, forget it. They'd be sad. So the moon and the nights, the flowers, the birds, the night creatures like the deer. We had for our painting in Manashiksha of Rasalila Krishna's return, the artist wanted to put in cows. I said, no, there's no cows. It's night. To put in some deer. He's not out with his cows at night. The Yamuna, we just had the previous verse, Krishna, the Yamuna Tira Vanachari. They all become happy. Krishna's serving you. Oh, you nice moon have come out. Let me serve you. And then he's serving the Abalagana, the group of the gopis, the group of the girls. And Prabhupada talks about, I believe in the third canto, how this male and female exists also in reality. You know, in our present life, we're male and female very briefly and circumstantially, isn't it? I'm sure we've all been, any of us who are currently female, I'm sure we've had births as males, and any of us who are currently males, I'm sure we've had births as females. And for some people, they switch back and forth every life. I had one friend, she and her husband went to an astrologer. He said, you've been married for 16 lifetimes, and each lifetime you switch. Who's the husband and wife? So it's not very meaningful. I was just hearing a class this morning where Srila Prabhupada, he was talking about, you know, we've been asked whether or not we discriminate against women or against blacks. And he said, on the spiritual level, everyone is equal. He said, materially, you'll never make everyone equal. This will be a failure. He said, but spiritually, everyone is equal. We just have these different bodies, different bodily construction. So we're not really males and females. It's just the particular body that we have. It's like saying, you know, you are a Prius, or you are a Tesla, or you are a bicycle. But there is a reality of male and female. And so there's this relationship, and the females are Abala. Now, of course, they're actually the spiritual potency of the Lord. So they're very powerful. But in this relationship, where we're just reading the very end of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, how there's disturbance in rasa. If the man acts in a particular way, or the woman acts in a particular way, it can cause disturbance in the rasa. If the woman is too audacious, for example, then it causes disturbance in the rasa. Or if the woman is not jealous, it causes disturbance in the rasa. If the man gets very angry, it causes disturbance in the rasa. If the women don't get jealous anger, it causes a disturbance. And if the men get angry, it causes a disturbance. The rasa degrades to an uparasa, a kind of semblance of rasa. So there is some reality of this male and female, and some difference eternally. So therefore they're abalagana. And they had anuraga. So what is this anuraga? Anuraga is, there's varieties of depth and type of love that is different in each of the 5 primary rasas, or the 5 primary ratis, or staibhavs. So for example, in Shantaras, in neutrality, it never even gets to prema. It stays at bhava. And some of the students were asking, why doesn't it get to prema? I said, because those who eternally are in Shantarasa, they don't want the intensity of prema. They don't want that. They pull back from it. One variety of prema is called pranaya. Pranaya only exists in friendship, in Sakya Bhav, and in conjugal, in Madhurya Bhav. Pranaya is a sense of equality with the Lord. So in Dasya Bhav, you always feel subordinate, and in Vatsalya, you always feel superior. And then in the parental, they can talk about levels, but they're always in Raga. In Raga, if Krishna likes something, even if you wouldn't normally like it, you love it. And if Krishna doesn't like something, even if you normally like it, you don't like it. And you're willing to give your life for the Lord. So what is this anuraga, which only exists among Krishna's conjugal devotees? So this is explained in Ujjwala Nilamani in 14.146. Chapter 14 is about staibhav. So this is the essence of the love. And anuraga is the stage right before mahabhava. And it is about that your beloved always seems new. Either aspects of your beloved or your beloved as a whole always seems fresh and new, and your love always seems fresh and new. Isn't that what we want in a loving relationship? Right? This is the fantasy, particularly in romantic relationships, Oh, look at the 80-year-old couple dancing on the dance floor, and their love is always new, right? Unfortunately, in this world, our love gets old. I always give the example, when your newborn baby is there, all you think about is your baby. Is he breathing? Is he breathing? And, my kids are now all in their 40s. I'm not always thinking, are they breathing? Are they breathing? I'm not calling them up like, when they were newborn, you're waking up at night. Is he breathing? Is he breathing? I'm not calling my son all the time. Are you okay at night? Are you breathing? It decreases. The intensity decreases. Right? With a newborn baby, you just leave the room and you're thinking about them. Leaving them with a babysitter, you're practically having a heart attack. But again, that decreases. But an anuraga is always fresh. So when the gopis see Krishna, they often say, who is that? Who is that beautiful young man? And the one that, you know him. No, I've never met him before. And Krishna's like that with the gopis. What is that, a lightning bolt? Oh, who is that? I've never seen her before. No, you've seen her many times. No, I've never seen her before. So that is anuraga. Does anyone remember, right, when we looked at the word for word? What was the word with anurata? Was what? Constantly. Yes, the way it was translated here was constantly. So it's constantly being renewed. All right, so here we're going to look. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. Okay, this is pink. Okay, so this is Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. Though Krishna is the original source of all loving enjoyment, he made the gopis the cause of that enjoyment. So the gopis become the Vishaya. Krishna takes the role of Ashraya. He's trying to please the gopis. Thus, Krishna is described as Anurata Abalagana, one who followed after the pleasure of the gopis. He's trying to please the gopis. Though Krishna causes everyone's pleasure, he himself was attracted to the gopis for pleasure. Now here, how Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur takes Abala, he says the word Abala also suggests that the gopis were unmatched in their strength or power to express pure love. So Abala meaning no one could be as strong as them in their love. What a wonderful way of turning that around. So here we see Krishna is so attracted by this constant, ever-fresh love of the gopis that his love toward them is also ever-fresh. Okay, now we have the controversial part. I hope I can get through with all this. And this is the statement of Atman Yavarudha Sorataha. That Sorataha is conjugal bliss, Atma is the self. But we have a problem with this word Avarudha. So Avarudha can mean constricted, obscured, or covered, concealed. So there we have in the BBT translation, within himself there was covered, obstructed, concealed conjugal behavior, which has been translated in the BBT verse as he didn't have any mundane sex desire. Now that reminds us, of course, of situations where the having no form, right? Whenever it shows up in Sanskrit, not having a form, and Prabhupada will say that means not having a material form. So Srila Prabhupada also translates this the same way in his Krishna book. So he's saying, while strolling on the bank of the Yamuna, Krishna recited various kinds of poetry. So that's how Prabhupada's getting the Kavya Katha, that it was Krishna reciting. I hope we get to this. Krishna reciting the poetry. He thus enjoyed the company of the gopis in the soothing moonlight of autumn. Sex desire is especially excited in the autumn season, but the wonderful thing about Krishna's association with the gopis is that there was no question of sex desire. It was, as clearly stated in the Bhagavad description by Sukadeva Goswami, Avaruddha Sorata, the sex impulse was completely controlled. All right, and then he's going to go on to the next section. All right? But how is it that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Sanatana Goswami and Jiva Goswami describe this? As I said, they describe it 180 degrees different. They're looking at the spiritual conjugal ras. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Krishna's mind was completely absorbed in conjugal pastimes during the rasa dance. Therefore, Krishna is described as Atman Yavaruda Sorataha, one whose mind, Atma, was completely absorbed in everything related to conjugal activity, Sorataha, such as the erotic emotions, gestures, indifference, insults, the Vyavichari bhavs like perverseness, eagerness, and joy, the Sattvika bhavs, etc. And if we turn to Sanatana Goswami, he says, but Krishna is controlled by prema. He has accepted avarudha, all acts of love or the most intimate pastimes, surata, since he has appeared as avatar for this purpose. He gave enjoyment to the gopis without indifference and with inner determination, atmani. He experienced everything personally with great attachment by accepting them within himself. And if we turn to Jiva Goswami, and we could have talked the whole class about this one point, and what do we do with different explanations from different acharyas. So looking at Jiva Goswami, he says his mind, Atmani, was firmly fixed, avarudha, in all emotions and gestures suitable for amorous contact with the gopis, sorataha. This means he could not give him up. The cause of his mental fixation of loving affairs is given. There were many women with anuraga. Their cause was anuraga in prema. So here he's explaining how it's a spiritual fix. And in the original Bhagavatam translation in 112, Srila Prabhupada translates avaruda as fixed up or compact. But Jiva Goswami does note at the end of his tika, in his commentary, Sridhar Swami explains that avaruda sorataha means, quote, without the influence of material sex desire. Thus, he has given another not commonly accepted explanation of this phrase. So Srila Prabhupada clearly picked up on Sridhar Swami's explanation, which is also what is picked up here. All right, we have 2 minutes. Then we have that this was happening sarvaha. It was happening in all the nights and all the autumns of his Kaishora age. Sanatana Goswami goes on and on and on and on and on about how this is happening in Krishna's Kaishora age. So this is not a one-off. It's not like Krishna just dances with the gopis one time and that's it. This is going on, although we are ending this pastime today in our classes here in New Goloka. This pastime is going on. And the last point is that this became the shelter of rasa about which the poets speak and discuss. And Sanatana Goswami says, this reference to poetry means works like Gita Govinda and Vidagdha Madhava. So although the description in the Bhagavatam is brief, it's describing one night as if it was many nights, we have so many poets who are taking these pastimes and expanding and expanding, expanding. We have the Ananda Vrindavan Champu, the Gopal Champu, the Vidagdha Madhava, the Gita Govinda, the Govinda Lilamrita. And of course, these things can be expanded and expanded and expanded without limit. And when we relish this poetic description, then we are tasting real rasa. And by tasting this real rasa, we become detached from the perverted, unsatisfying imitation of rasa in this world. Thank you very much. Please excuse my very inadequate explanation of this verse, which could be discussed from now into the end of time. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.